Hello, and welcome to Networking Unleashed, Building Profitable Connections. Welcome to the show. I'm Michael Forman, and you're listening to the podcast where networking is more than just awkward handshakes and bad coffee. It's an art and a talent. But here's the twist, it's an art and talent you can actually learn. Yes, even if you're the person hiding in the corner at every event pretending to check emails. Networking isn't just a nice skill to have. It's a game changer. When you get good at it, you'll wonder why you didn't start sooner. More connections, more opportunities, more profits. It's like unlocking a cheat code for life. So whether you're the life of the party or the let me just stay in the corner and text type, we've got something for you. So stick around. Let's turn those awkward small talk moments into big wins. Now, I have a guest today. His name is Chris Abdey, and I have a short intro for him, but I'm going to let him introduce himself and you'll get a better feeling of what he's about. His bio, well, what he asked me to tell you about him, he wanted to know if you're caught in an endless loop of I'll start tomorrow. Say hello to Chris Abdey, a seasoned procrastination coach with a knack of transforming hesitation into action. And I'm going to bring up as a simple poem. I told you this last time that my mother told me. Procrastination is my sin. It brings me endless sorrow. I really must stop doing it. In fact, I'll stop tomorrow. Okay, Chris, take her away.
Oh, thank you, Michael, and thank you for having me on the show. Yeah, as a procrastination coach, I do feel that sometimes we don't pay enough attention to it as such. But the hows and the whys really brought me back to I've always wanted to help people in some way. My mother was a psychiatric nurse for many years. My father had many different professions, always in that capacity of helping others, whether it was the military or he was a paramedic for a while, and very very brilliant man. And so I, wanted to, I've always wanted to help people like that. So we fast forward to my high school days, and I'm sure everybody can relate to this one. And in my last 2 years of high school, I had, to do 12 art projects. And what happened was, well, I left them to the last minute because I didn't think art was really that important. So I was scrambling around in my garage. It was probably about 7 or 8 p.m. on the Sunday before the Monday morning, which was going to be a full-on art exam, like exhibit. You can actually look this up. We were in the paper, small paper, but still. So there was a lot of pressure on this, right? So it's like, but I did it and I walked in there. And let me ask you, Michael, what do you think the result was of that?
Maybe you saw that putting things off wasn't the best idea.
That's what you would think. But a series of fortunate events led me to actually the proctor was from another school, so they didn't know me. Didn't know that I just completely slacked off for the entire 2 years. They started talking about the art as soon as he came in. I just shut my yap. He's like, "Oh, I really love how you use these, unconventional materials, but you didn't go too far overboard. I love how this one seems to represent this." I'm like, "You're absolutely right." And my saving grace, I think, was where he asked, he said, "Oh, this is very reminiscent of pathetic art." It's like, pathetic art, pathetic art, pathetic art. I think I can work with this. And so I said, "You're right," because in today's society, is not the striving for perfection the new mediocrity because everybody's doing it. And bing bang boom, I pass with almost the same grade or maybe even slightly better than the guy that busted his hump for 2 years and had extra art lessons and all this extra help put on him. And so it actually kind of gave me a minor god complex at that age. I was going out into the world. Oh, I'll just I'll leave it to the last second. I'll pull a rabbit out of my hat. It'll be fine, right? And it works like that until it doesn't. And then fast forward into my adult life, and I was always striving. Along the way, I lost that dream when I was younger, so I got caught up in the rat race, almighty dollar sort of thing. Customer service. Then I went to, management. Then I went to project management, business development. Then I went to, well, even at the end, financial risk analysis. But the commonality between all those things was I was always working with people, right? Guiding them through burnout, stress, overwhelm, signs of procrastination, right? But procrastination really holds that part for me because of what happened to me in high school. And also, I know how detrimental it can be as well because it robbed me of my last conversation with my mother, too. We knew she was dying, and because it was uncomfortable for me, I just put it off, always had better things to do, and put it on the calendar and for the Monday. And depending on who you want to believe, it's still kind of a blur to me, honestly. I don't know the exact time anymore. But sometime between that Sunday night and the wee hours of Monday morning, she passed. So I know that it can have that detrimental effect as well. So that's really why I honed in on procrastination.
Sometimes you need that kick in the pants to get you straightened out. And it sounds like that was your kick in the pants. So listen, whatever the reason is, it got you moving in the right direction. And I think you're a lot better for it. But judging by what you said, by procrastinating or by not procrastinating, how would you network with other people? How do you keep networking, and what's your commonality of networking?
Right. So for networking, I never really procrastinate. Actually, that's not true. That's not true. I want it
Okay.
to be true, but it's not true. I'm sorry. I told a lie. A little white lie. I tell to myself, I don't procrastinate on that. I'm like, well, maybe I do. So in one sense, I procrastinate. In another sense, I don't. So in terms of my networking, my online networking, which I've always been more comfortable with, I don't procrastinate that at all, right? But I do find myself procrastinating a little bit on my networking in person because, any number of reasons, the main one being convenience normally. So, getting better at that one. But normally I don't procrastinate when it comes to that.
Okay. So what do you consider the key elements of networking?
Well, the key elements of networking are, well, for me, they would be, know yourself first, know how you connect and how you interact with people, and then know how to know other people, and then go out and actually start meeting people.
Okay. Okay. Well, it sounds like you have a certain fear. You're slightly introverted and you prefer doing everything online instead of going in person, right? Am I right so far?
Yeah, yeah, you're pretty right.
Okay. So how would you or how do you overcome the fear of networking?
Right. So that actual the fear of networking is actually twofold for me, and I'll do a little bit of a sidebar when it comes to that. The fear for me hasn't really been about before. It's what we call the witch wound, right? That fear of being judged. Like what are you doing? I mean, as a coach and being in the space now, you hear a lot of stuff, right? Like the first thing is, oh, procrastination coach. Well, do you help me get over it? Do you help me do it better? Like, well, what are you doing, right? And then you have those other little, gremlins that get in there, those doubts, right? Of people who are close to you that are supposed to be your supporters, and they might not always support you. So there's multifacets to that. But the way that I get over it is, I mean, I go out and do it, and the fear of being like judged or the witch wound, I actually work on actively by. You're gonna laugh about this one, but it's true. I'm sure there's pictures of me out there on the internet doing it too. I have this little duck hat. So when I feel like I'm being judged, I'll go out and wear this duck hat with the sole purpose, and it's got these little feet. You squeeze it and waves. So I'll just go out and wave at people all day, right? And I'm like, well, if I can do that all day and still feel all right about it, I can probably go out and tell people what I actually do.
Mhm. All right, I can go with that. I can go with that. While you're going out and you're doing this networking, whether you're doing it through your introverted ways or extrovert sometimes, I'm sure you've made mistakes. So what was your biggest mistake and how did you overcome it?
Honestly, my biggest mistake, and this is a common recurring theme actually. My biggest mistake was just not being authentic. One of the things that I learned on really early was that I was a chameleon, just because of the way that I was brought up. So I would mirror people quite a bit, which sometimes works and sometimes doesn't, right?
Yeah.
And then I guess that's pretty much it. So that's the biggest mistake is just not being yourself. So, I mean, I remember going to Las Vegas on a company trip once, right? And I'd never been to Vegas. I'm not really, I wasn't really a gambler. Wasn't really, into the other sort of nightlife stuff. But lo and behold, when I got sitting with a bunch of guys over there, right, we are talking about things, laughing. Oh yeah, yeah, I love that. Let's go see that show or whatever, right? Yeah, it was. It's just I probably could have saved myself a couple of hours of really awkward things, but I did it because I wanted to be liked by the guys, right?
Okay. Okay. But okay. So give me your top three strategies for networking. So you've given me everything you've done so far, but give me your top three strategies that you use today for networking.
Right. My top three strategies for today. I'm a big fan of non-marketing marketing. I I like to say ABN, always be networking.
Right.
So I'll even go out and I'll go to I'll sign up to book clubs. I'll go out to the library and just see what other people are reading. Try to strike up conversations that way. Basically, anywhere there's people, I'll try to. Um, and again, I don't do this from a perspective of trying to gain business. I just do this from a perspective of trying to get to know people. But a lot of people, when you're standing in line at the grocery store and someone says, "Oh, these lines, they never open up, the two checkouts." Yeah, you're right, they never do. Just just silly things like that. Hey, we got 5 minutes, so don't you tell me about something about that.
Well, when you meet people, whether you're at a networking event or online in a department store or grocery store, there's still a mantra: know you, like you, trust you, then they'll do business with you. Now, you could do business or just get to know you, but still you have to go through those first stages before the trust factor comes in. And as we said before, know you, that's pretty simple because you're a nice guy. Everybody knows you. Like you, that narrows the field down just a little bit. But know you, like you, and then trust you. Trust is such a crucial part of networking, whether it's personal or business, but it's still a crucial part. How would you maintain those relationships? You told me how you get those relationships, whether they're superficial or not, but how do you maintain the relationships that you want to maintain?
So the way that I maintain relationships that I want to maintain, normally what'll happen is I have a few touch points, and I always try to get, either a virtual coffee or a real coffee out of it, right? Um, doesn't always work out, and sometimes it falls by the wayside. But normally, what it looks like is, oh, hey, do you use WhatsApp? Do you use, Telegram? Whatever it is, let's look into that. I usually find that some commonality, right? Like they have some sort of club. If they don't, well, then I just say, go the virtual, coffee route or whatever. But it doesn't always work out because I'll have to admit my follow-ups aren't always as good as they should be from those interactions because they just happened out of the blue anyway.
Well, follow up, I profess that follow up is just as, if not more important than the initial contact. Okay, so it's the way that you follow up. I have a secret sauce, the way that I follow up with business contacts, keeping it professional. So within 2 weeks, I contact you in a certain way or two certain ways, and it usually gets me pretty favorable results. Um, but the follow up is key. Give me one tip that you would give somebody looking to improve their networking skills.
Well, obviously, my biggest one is I would just be authentic, just be you, because eventually it's going to come out anyway that you're pushing something off, and when it does, then you have to rebuild the sort of trust factor, right? So, like, well, why did you say you like sushi when you don't? Been there, done that multiple times. Let's go for sushi. I hate sushi. Yeah, let's do it. I'll go and eat a California roll or something maybe. But
Right, right. Yeah, it's true. Being authentic is really the key to be present, to be yourself. All of that is part of the confidence building that you normally try to have before you even meet somebody. So you have to first start with that confidence in yourself. If you're excuse me, if you're not confident, then the people you're talking to usually can see that and they'll go right past you. So that's all very important. So you have the confidence building, you have the building of the trust. All of that really comes into how you network professionally, not just personally. But with everything that you've told me so far, what's your favorite marketing tactic?
actually, this one's something I don't really share often, and I'm wondering if I should, because if I do, then people are going to understand it and they may not do it as much. But there's this psychological aspect of something, and somebody taught me this a long time ago, and it's kind of applied to dating, but I've sort of mimicked it to networking when I'm talking to people. And it's you teach somebody something, and they're gonna trust you a little more when they use that thing. Well, I sort of dumbed it down a little bit, and so let's say I'm in that grocery line again, right? So if I know the line's big, and this always happens to me at the grocery store anyway. So when I know the line's long and we've had that interaction, and I'm like, and normally, maybe I've got a cart, maybe I don't. Oh, man, you know what? I left the pickles in the aisle. Can you watch my cart for me till I get back? And, normally if I've, done a good job of talking to them, they say yes. If they say yes, I've noticed that they are more likely to ask me for my contact information after without actually giving them anything.
That's really a good way. Always have the person ask you instead of you offering it up. It's the same way when you go to networking events. I'll use that as a whole. You're always looking to give rather than receive. So you're always looking to give them whatever information that they want. And if you're authentic enough, if you're real, if you're present enough, then they'll in turn ask you for your contact information. You know, when I was in the mortgages and I was online at a grocery store, I'd hear a conversation behind me about mortgages, the rates, they can't find right property or this or that. There's some sort of a problem. And I turn around, I give them an answer to their problem, and I turn back around. And if I presented that properly, they would say, wait a second, well, what about this? And that's all you're looking to do. And the same way is if you're meeting somebody and you're giving your 30-second elevator pitch, you don't give out the whole pitch. You give out just enough so they ask you for the information. But that's a very good thing. So let me bring this all the way around. Give me one takeaway that my listeners can use right now.
In terms of networking.
It's up to you. Give me what? Yeah, yes. Let's keep it the network.
Okay. All right. So the one takeaway that you can start doing today, I'm going to go back and beat it with like a dead horse. Be authentic. Barring that, if you can get them to, um, and it depends on how much trust you're willing to put out here, because the gentleman that actually put forth this idea, not mine, but he said you give them your wallet and you let them hold it for 5 seconds. And I'm like, okay, wow, that's a little bit more than I'm willing to go, but
We pushing it just a little bit too much.
yeah. So, but I mean, if you can get them to, accept that tiny, tiny responsibility, it means that you're in, and they will say. Generally, they'll say yes to a second coffee meeting at least, right, or something, maybe a book club meeting or whatever meeting you want to go to. So that actionable step is something they can do today. is actually three actionable steps that are pretty easy to do. If you don't want to do that, there's still active listening. So listen to what other people are saying. You know, make it about them and not about you. And then that second one would be don't offer any information unless they ask for it, which is pretty easy. You just have to shut up.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty good. As far as the listening goes, and I say this across stages and workshops and everything else, listening is so important that when you're 100% listening, you're taking away all your distractions, your cell phone, everything else, you're putting it all away, and you're listening to that person. You're concentrating. And by listening, by not saying anything, by shutting up, you are giving that person 100% of your attention. And what's more important than listening, but the pause at the end? Because the pause lets the other person believe that you are listening to them and you're going to respond to what they said, not the next thing that you wanted to say, but responding to something that they said. And that goes such a long way. It really does. Again, building that trust and everything else. Okay, Chris. So if somebody wanted to get in touch with you about coaching, about just getting in touch with you, about saying hi, whatever, how would they do it?
Well, the best ways and the easiest ways are my LinkedIn. I'm the only Chris Abdey on LinkedIn, so you can always find me there pretty easily. Then you have my website, procrastinationstation.ca, or you've got just my name, chrisabdey.com. None of them are very well designed right now. They're just placeholders, but you can find me there.
That's okay. But as long as they can get hold of you, that's great. Do you have anything, any last minute things you want to add?
No, I think just want to say thank you for having me on the show and really enjoyed it.
It's great, Chris. Chris, I want to thank you again for coming out, and this is great. I'll talk to you soon. Well, that's a wrap, folks. A huge thank you to our special guest for sharing such incredible insights today. And of course, a big shout out to you, our amazing listeners, for tuning in and spending your time with us. Remember, networking isn't about being perfect, it's about being present. So take what you've learned today, get out there, and make some meaningful connections. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone who could use a little networking inspiration. Let's keep the conversation going. You can find me on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or my website, michaelaforman.com. Remember, until next time, keep practicing, keep connecting, and keep building those relationships. This is Michael A. Forman signing off. Take care and happy networking.